These are books. I don't know how to read them. Why don't I know how to read them? Because I haven't been to school in like 5 years. Oopsies.
What up? I'm Jared, I'm 19, and I never fucking learned how to read.
Why don't I read books, though, you might be asking? Well, it comes down to 3 reasons. 1, again, I haven't been to school, haven't been forced to read books, so I haven't. 2, I have other options to read. There's a lot of things on the internet now. You don't need to read books, per se. You can just read Wikipedia for 4 hours. And 3, some of the things I read are just difficult. In fact, all the things I read are difficult to read. Mainly because I read stuff like this, which has gotta be one of the most boring books I've ever read. It's awful. So, I have attempted to read books in the past few years. I really have. These are some of the few books I've attempted to read. This is Kazakhstan Unfulfilled Promise. It's terrible. This is also Sprach Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche. Preachy, annoying, monologues, it's only monologues, gross. Thanks for the Memories, Hong Kong, 1997. I don't like the lady who wrote it. I actually have read one book in this year. I read a book called, what was it called? Oh god. Oh yeah, it's called Without You, There Is No Us. It is a book about North Korea and going undercover at a school in North Korea as a journalist. And it was a great book. And I learned a lot from it. And then I didn't read anything else this year. So, books, anyone? Yes, books. I'm going to attempt to read this book, which is backwards, and this book, which is not backwards. Well, this one isn't either anymore, but it was. So how are we going to remedy the 3 situations of why I don't read books? Well, it's actually quite simple. This video forces me to read the books, so that gets the number 1 issue out of the way. And then number 2 and 3 are actually quite easily solved. By reading this, it'll force me to learn how to pay attention, because if I don't, we'll never get this thing done. And this one, well, this is the best thing that we could do to remedy the other situation of my books that I read are boring. Because it's not a boring book. It's not a data-filled book, it's not a philosophy book, it's just a nice narrative book with very short pages. So, this will be our savior for there. So, we're going to attempt to read both these books, and by the end, I'll give you little reviews of them. I don't feel qualified to give a review, because I don't know how to review a book, but I'm gonna do it anyways. So Koisapan was actually a pretty easy read for me. It took me a little under 3 hours, and this is where I kind of started realizing it isn't me as much as the books that I'm reading as the reason of why I don't read that much, because this book really was able to, kind of draw me in, as you'll see in the review right now. Koisapan. I loved this book. I legitimately really like this book. Looking inside, it's very short pages, very simple to read, but it's so good. The language is amazing, and I do know that it is a translation, so if there were any issues with the language, I could look past that, but there aren't. It's a great translation, and the language is beautiful, and this is possibly the only book that I've read recently which isn't, some in-depth look into a political culture of a country. And I'm glad I read it. I actually bought this in Canada a few years ago, and then I never read it. But I'm so glad I have. It's really good. Koisapan is about the life of Innu people in northern Quebec, and it's just, I love it. It's a very melancholy book. It's definitely not something that is just a nice, calming story. At times, it's a bit sad, but from it's beautiful. It's sad but beautiful. It's not all sad. You might notice that the pages aren't completely filled, and yeah, it's a bit weird reading that. I have never read anything like this before. It's not very connected from page to page, I guess would be the right thing to say. But it is a cohesive story in a sense. I wouldn't say it's the easiest thing to understand. It does take a little bit of thinking, to connect each dot, but I I really like it. It's definitely short. Like, very short. Like, oops, uh-oh. Like, here is it in comparison to a Canadian penny. That's a very small book. In comparison, here's the other book, Kazakhstan Unfulfilled Promise. That's an entire Canadian penny thick. I think Canadian pennies and American pennies are the same size, though. So, kroner. Here's it in comparison to a 5 kroner from Iceland, and in comparison, here is Kazakhstan Unfulfilled Promise. So it's a bit of so the two books are a bit, you know, different in their length. But despite that, even if this were like the size of Kazakhstan Unfulfilled Promise, I do think that this would have been a much easier read and much more enjoyable read. It's really interesting. I absolutely love this. And this is a great book. Buy it. The one thing I want to elaborate on that I kind of forgot about in the review is that each little page is a sort of portrait of a person, and they kind of get built on over time. And some of them are about, like, a guy who's addicted to alcohol, mothers who are, you know, quite young, and just moving out of the reservation. And it's really interesting because there aren't really any character names, it's just pronouns, like me, you, she, he, are a lot of, are some of the common ones that you find. Boo! Did I scare you? No? Okay, well, it's time to read Kazakhstan Unfulfilled Promise. And to be honest, I'm pretty scared. Okay, starting at page 52. Take the nice dollar bill out. And I'm gonna get reading. It's day 3. I've been reading this for a little bit, probably around 40 minutes today. Not long. It's awful. It takes me 40 minutes to read, like, what, 30 pages? Okay, well, see you in 6 hours. Oh god. I'm scared. Very scared. I'll see you later, I guess. So reading Kazakhstan Unfulfilled Promise was kind of nightmarish for me. It's a very tedious, long book, and I read it over 4 days, about 40-minute segments each, and about a few times a day. And it took me probably around 6 hours total to read, and what I learned from this is it's okay to take your time reading something. I don't have to finish a book in 1 day, because there's no reason to, you know? I'm very glad I read this, and I will be reading more stuff like this, but I'll probably take my time and just try to remember to read more. I did it. I finished it. I'm at the appendices. I did it. I'm not reading the appendices. I don't want to read the appendices. I don't want to read the book. Kazakhstan. Book report! This book was a very, very challenging read for me. I started probably around mid-March, and I was only able to get around to page 57, I think, maybe, which is past the challenge of creating Kazakhstanis. The reason this is such a difficult book is just because of the sheer density of it. If you look at a page, there's just a lot of data, and a lot of it's just like details of events that are important, but it's just very difficult to stay invested due to the fact that there's a very clear lack of, you know, there's a very clear lack of a storyline, you know. I found the book very interesting despite its tedious nature of reading. It was really interesting, you know, learning about why they were reluctant to accept independence, that being they're very dependent on Russia, and also, like, how they became such a powerful nation, that being the fact that, you know, they got foreign investment due to their, you know, they had the nuclear weapons left over, so the US was keen to get rid of those, and also they had enough oil to make Dick Cheney come. I would recommend this book to anyone who's interested in Kazakhstan. It gives you a very in-depth look into the beginning years of Kazakhstan, and it also gives you a very deep sense of pain while you're reading it. But once you're over with that, it's actually, I'm really happy I read it. I feel like I'm smarter now, but I don't know how worth it. I really like this cover though. This cover is cool. I like it. Another thing I found really interesting in this book is that it taught me a lot about how, like, the clan culture there, not like the Ku Klux kind of clan, but, you know, clans of people. Which I guess, are they people? That's a good question. But yeah, it's very nice to know, like, you know, about the middle, the small, and the Great Horde, I think? And their positions in society and how those came to be. And I do really like this book. Despite that, I don't ever want to read it again. I think I would rather glue my eyes shut and dox myself on the internet and let you see my feet. All three of those things. Because it's truly an awful thing to endure reading. So I did it. I read both the books I said I was going to. And I'm actually really proud. Because, well, I haven't read many books. But I learned something during this, because I actually started off with wanting to read 5 books, then I went down to 3, then the 2 that I read. The reason I didn't do 3 is because I couldn't find something I wanted to read. After Cosmic Sun and Full Promise, I wanted to read another book, something more interesting, but I just couldn't find anything that I wanted to read. And that, I think, is why I haven't read, because I don't know what to read. And I think that this journey has led me to find the kind of thing that I want to read. I liked Quisapan a lot. I think if I read more stuff like that, then I'll read more. So that's what I think I'm going to do. And I'm really glad I went on this journey, to find out what I can read. That wasn't really the goal of this journey, but it was what happened. It was the result of it. And I'm very glad that I know now what I would want to read. I want to thank you all for coming on this journey with me, even if it was only 2 books. Not really a journey, but to me it is. Thank you. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe, even if you didn't like it, because the next video will be better, I promise.